20 years of training, I got the one disease I've been learning to cure. I was a breast surgeon in the UK dealing with cancer. And at the age of 40, I got breast cancer myself. I had 2 local recurrences, and at 43, I had to quit my job. I physically couldn't operate anymore, and I lost everything.
This whole conversation is bigger than medicine. It's about pressure, fear, and what happens when a person who is normally strong, capable, and in control suddenly isn't.
It's only when you're on the other side you realize I'm going to remember that conversation for the rest of my life. The words, the weather, where I was sat, who cried.
Hi, Liz, welcome.
Thank you, Marko.
I wanted to have you on because you have really interesting perspective that most people simply don't have, right? You've been the surgeon making serious decisions for other people, and then you became the living patient with a fear, uncertainty, and decisions you couldn't fully control, which is a very different kind of insight.
Yeah.
I think this whole conversation is bigger than medicine, right? It's about pressure, fear, and what happens when a person who is normally strong, capable, and in control suddenly isn't. So before we get into that, for people who are meeting you for the first time, can you give us the short version of who you are, what happened, and what you do now?
Yeah, so I was a breast surgeon in the UK dealing with cancer. And at the age of 40, I got breast cancer myself. So 20 years of training, I got the one disease I've been learning to cure. And I had 2 local recurrences, and side effects of treatment meant that at 43, I had to quit my job. I physically couldn't operate anymore, and I lost everything. And I found a way over the last 10 years to make a new career. And I talk all over the world about leadership, about improving healthcare. I've written books. I have a podcast. I have a YouTube channel, just trying to keep educating and advocating for people to understand what it's like, but also to share my experiences. I made a lot of mistakes as a surgeon. Things I was taught, things I believed, things I shouldn't have done. And I don't want people to end up where I did. And again, having been on both sides of the table, it gives you a really unique perspective.
That's exactly why I was drawn to your work and reached out. And I was honest, in a way, this is personal for me in a smaller way because I've struggled with health anxiety for years. So I know how quickly your brain can run away when you're waiting for answers. You try to stay rational, but suddenly, in a way, every delay feels bigger than it probably is, right? And you tell yourself not to Google anything, but then, of course, you end up reading the worst possible thing at midnight. So, again, I'm not pretending I understand what you went through at all. I don't, but I do understand how loud fear can get when you don't have answers from that perspective. And you've lived that from both sides. You've been the surgeon and you've been the patient, right? What did being the patient teach you that being the surgeon never could?
I think as a surgeon, I like to be in control. I'm a type A personality. I'm used to preparing, being as good as I can as what I do, knowing I do a good job. I know the results. I know everything inside out. It's just like rote learning. And a patient, you're not in control. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You have no idea whether the people treating you are as good as you want them to be, even though they tell you they are. And it was really hard just giving that control up. My surgeon was a friend. She trained me, and I was telling her, put the scar here and use these sutures, and this is where you should put the drain. And she had to say, stop. You just have to let us look after you. And that was really, really hard and made me feel very uncomfortable, because at a time when you are vulnerable, you've had chemotherapy, you're scared of dying, you want control. But it's similar in a way to being a junior surgeon when you are doing your first night shift and you get a bleep to say there's someone in A&E who is bleeding and your heart is racing through the roof of your mouth and you're panicking. Oh my goodness, you're imagining all these scenarios and you get there and it's just bleeding from piles from hemorrhoids. Phew. But then when you do see someone who is seriously sick, you just don't know what to do, and you are in awe of your senior colleagues who just manage everything seamlessly. And you wonder, why aren't they scared? Why aren't they panicking?
That must be a strange shift, right? Because when you're expert, you understand the system, but when you're the patient, even if you know a lot, you're still the one waiting, right? Trying to understand what this means for your life in a way.
Exactly. And I've spent many years consenting people for operations. I tell them why I'm doing it, the good things that are going to happen, the bad things that can happen, what happens if you don't have it. And it's routine. But when you are the patient and someone is reading out a long list of scary things, clots in the lungs or heart attacks or risk of death, it's really scary. Do I trust someone to do this to me? Is it worth taking that risk? And it's really weird being on the other side of that bad news.
And what did you notice as the patient that you wish more doctors, leaders in general, or people in position of responsibility understood?
I took pride in breaking bad news well and giving patients the time and being as gentle as I could. But it's only when you're on the other side, you realize that is a massive event in my life. And I'm going to remember that conversation for the rest of my life. The words, the weather, where I was sat, who cried. And it doesn't have to be telling someone they've got cancer. It could be, we've had to cancel your operation, or you're not going to be able to present at the meeting today. That is bad news. And I think when knowing that, when you go in to give someone bad news, it's understanding the impact it will have. To you, it may just be something insignificant. Oh, by the way, that's been cancelled, but it's huge to them. So take the time and give them the attention they deserve. Do it properly. Turn your phone off, no other distractions, and ideally give them a plan. Because often as a doctor, I'd have to say, I'm really sorry, your operation's been cancelled. I don't know what's happening. I've got to see another patient. And that person's there thinking, well, what do I do? If you can give them a plan or something to do afterwards, it helps. It makes you seem and feel a bit more human. But when it just becomes run of the mill, that person on the other end really gets angry.
And waiting is the hardest part, at least for me. I was always wondering on a deeper layer, in a way, what actually happens to people mentally when they're stuck in that waiting space, right? Because it's
the
tough.
waiting. I'm a bit different because when I saw my scan, I knew I had cancer. I didn't need to wait for the biopsy because it's my job, but I still needed a week to get the results back. And that week, when you have the internet at your fingers and you can go anywhere looking at blogs from people who've died of cancer, the worst case scenario, and it's always 2 a.m, you have the anxiety, you can't sleep, you're imagining the worst. Now we can go to Claude or ChatGPT who can reassure us that the worst is going to happen. It's really, really scary. And the longer we make people wait, the worse it is. But I could tell someone it's cancer tomorrow, but I can't tell you what the plan is because I need all these other things to happen. Is that better or worse? I don't know. But I think doing it as quickly as you can is really, really important.
And I think the worst advice is often just don't think about it, right? As if that's an option.
Yeah, you're going to.
Right? When something serious is hanging over you, your mind doesn't switch off.
Yeah, and I think there are those of us who imagine the worst. You get a vibe off someone. You think, oh my goodness, I'm going to get fired tomorrow. And you spend hours looking online, another job. How am I going to pay the mortgage? Maybe I'm pregnant. Going through this hellhole. They were just having some indigestion and they're absolutely fine. But you've gone through that state of worry. And I think I would tell people, you are going to worry and you are going to go on the internet. But let me send you to some safe sites. Safe being it's true, it's kind, it's not going to be scary. This is a good place to go to start looking for things. Don't imagine the future because we don't know what's going to happen. They will. Some won't want to know anything. That's part of human nature. But if you can signpost them to helpful places to go, that can help.
And what did cancer specifically teach you about control? Because a lot of high-performing people like you you mentioned type A, right, are very attached
Yes.
to control. They may not call it that. They might call it being prepared, responsible, disciplined, right? But
Yeah.
then life can hit you with something you can't outwork, right?
Yeah. It's humbling. It makes you realize how little you actually have control of. And I think it makes you realize what's important. It's your family, it's your friends, it's the stuff you do outside of work. As a surgeon, I had let go of all the hobbies, all the activities I loved. It was work, 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 long hours, emails in the evenings, going up to midnight, working at the weekends. It was the job. It didn't need to be, but I'd been taught and I'd been trained, this is what you do to get ahead. And when that's taken away, I had nothing left. I had no hobbies, no activities. I didn't see friends regularly because my life was a surgeon. And it really makes you stop and think, what is important in life? And I spent a lot of time worrying, is my cancer going to come back? I've had it 3 times. I'm clear now. And you get to the stage where you think, it's out of my control. I don't know whether I'm going to die of cancer or not, but what I can control is to live the healthiest I can, to exercise, to drink a bit less, to eat a bit better, to have fun, to make memories with people, and to learn to say no. It is all right to say no to things that you don't have time for, and to say no to answering emails at midnight, and to actually say, tonight is my family night, or tonight is my football night, and actually put those things in place, because we need those to make us a better person. You have to look after yourself and almost be a bit more self-ish. By giving yourself an hour in the week for you, you would then find it easier to look after other people, to do your job. And I think for me, it was, I need to start controlling what is important to me as a human being. And then family and then work, rather than work is above everything else.
Yeah. And it's funny that nowadays, because of this whole hustle culture, we call it selfish when it's 1 hour per week for ourselves, right?
Yeah. You know, the only person who's going to look after you is you. And I think it's the female caring side of me. I'm at the bottom of the pile. It's patients and husband and family and dog, and then it's me, because I don't have time, because I am so busy doing things for other people. And again, the phones, the social media, we are fascinated in what complete strangers are doing on LinkedIn rather than actually talking to our brothers and our sisters and our grandchildren. And I think a serious illness or trauma just makes you realize what is important in life and what you've been not doing. And someone said, no one's going to put on your gravestone, she was an amazing worker who always answered emails at midnight. I don't want that. I want you as a wife or a mother or a daughter. You know, work is not everything.
That's the part I think many people will recognize. A lot of us use control as a way to feel safe, right? And then something happens where you realize, okay, I can do everything right and still not be able to control the outcome, right? That's a brutal lesson in a way.
You get people who are fit, healthy, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they run marathons, they still get cancer. And it's hard when you are trying to pay the bills. The cost of everything is rising. Houses are expensive, cars are expensive. You need that job to keep a roof over your head. And you may hate the job and you need to work to get that promotion, and then something comes and you lose the job. That added fear of how am I going to make ends meet? It's really, really hard. And it's fine for me to sit here and say, yes, say no to your boss at midnight, but they create that pressure. And ideally you'd get the leaders, the guys at the top, to be a bit vulnerable. So I was talking about the patient earlier when I was flapping and my bosses weren't. It's a skill I learned that I call internal brown trousers, external calm. Inside I've got diarrhea going on. Oh my goodness, what's happening? But if I do that, nothing happens. Can you imagine a chief exec coming into a meeting, panicking and flapping? You wouldn't trust them. I've learned to say, give people jobs, give them something to do to calm them down that buys me time to think. It's a skill you learn. But the follow-up is to then, after it's all finished, say, guys, I was really scared. This is what I was actually thinking and what I was feeling. And I've learned not to show it so we get through the crisis. But you need to know, I'm feeling what you're feeling. I'm like you. I've been where you are. And I think that's really, really important.
And when in a way the truth is hard, what does good communication sound like? Because I don't think people need perfect words, right? They need honesty, as you said. They need also to feel like the person in front of them hasn't disappeared emotionally, right? So what does that look like in real life?
I think it's different for different people. I was taught never to show emotion when breaking bad news, never to cry, never to get upset. I never saw my bosses cry when we lost a young girl on the table. You don't show emotion. It's a sign of weakness. And then when you do get sick or you have mental health problems, again, you don't show. And that mask can go into the home. So you don't show your family how stressed you are. And then when you do break down, no one knows it's coming. And I think you find your own way of expressing things. And it may just be you start with one person. I talk about there's always one person you can talk to, and it may be a different person for a different scenario, but you just say, I need to talk to you about something. Is now a good time? And that lets them know this is not a hi, are you fine, move on. They need time just to sit and you just need to listen. I think that's a really good way of opening it and getting used to talking and sharing. You don't want help. You just want someone else to know what you're going through. And sometimes you may just come in and say, look, guys, that was shit, wasn't it? You don't need to plan it. Just speaking from the heart and being honest. You know, most of us are terrible at doing this. And the first time will feel so uncomfortable. But the people you're sharing with will love you for it. It's really scary to do. But can you imagine? Because if your bosses they never show emotion, they're perfect, everything gets handled and you're struggling, how are you ever going to be like them? You don't want that promotion because you don't know how they take the pressure because they just seem to handle it. And I just think it's being a bit vulnerable. It's being a bit open. It's that practice of just letting people in because we are human beings holding down a job. And that comes with emotion and stress and trauma. And it's normal.
People often think that they have to choose between being honest and being kind, right? But the best people do both in a way. They tell the truth, but they don't make the other person feel abandoned with it.
No, and I think it's like when you're giving a criticism, they kind of say, put it in a sandwich. So you tell them something really good. What you did today was great, but actually you could do this differently. That wasn't so good. And then you give them another compliment. I was taught as a surgeon through negative criticism and humiliation. You did this, just shouting, and that was how we were taught. And it's horrible and it makes you scared. You make more mistakes. And some people don't have a good bedside manner. They're never going to be the person that can be honest and kind. That's just them. And I think there's a bit of realizing you can't make everybody like you, but you can make them respect you. This person is never going to be nice to me. They're never going to be someone I can find in. But now I know that about them, I can cope and move on. I think the more you do it, the better you get. And potentially asking for feedback. How did that go? Did that sound all right? But then you can't do it at the time because then people don't want to burst your bubble when you think you've done something good. Communication is really, really hard, and you are trained by the people who trained you. I picked up phrases from the people who trained me. I love the way you said that. I love what she did. And you find your own way of doing it because it's my job, part of my job to break bad news. But if you've only had bad things, you may be bad at doing it yourself. What do you think?
I think in general that people view this as black and white, right? It's like either I will be kind and emotionally accessible to the team, or I will be firm and direct, right? And I think this is where professionals in general make it wrong in a way.
I know it's making a lot of women become more alpha, but they may not be, and they are acting more masculine. That doesn't appeal to them. And the minute they have a softer moment, I've been accused of being pregnant or being on my period or it's a bad day. They don't take me seriously when I am stern, when I need to be. And I think that can be really hard as well. But you can be honest and kind. You can be honest and unkind. I think the two can go together. It's just, you need someone to show you the way.
Yeah. And it's so rare, but I think it's in a way a superpower of very good leaders nowadays. It's rarity, but it should be one of the most important in a way. I mean, it's linked to emotional intelligence, right? And active listening, empathy, which it's in a way buzzwords. Everyone is sharing them preaching
but we're not doing it.
emotional intelligence, but no one is doing it. Yeah.
I think one of the best things I ever did was we had a 3-day course to really improve how we tell people they've got cancer, and they got actors to come in. And they would act a situation. It was going to be difficult. And because we kind of told them what our nightmare scenarios had been. Well, let's redo that again. And there was 5 of us in the room. We take it in turns. And seeing and watching bad conversations just make you realize how my words act on someone else and how uncomfortable I feel. You can't video someone and make them watch back what they're doing, but just that snippet of, oh, I get it now. I think this is great when I say this, but I'm making people cry. I had no idea. And some people will change and some people will think this is just ridiculous and that's just their personality. But we need to start softening up, I think.
And in a way, we rarely think, especially, it's speed, right? Everyone is praising speed.
Exactly. And I remember, it's a cliche, at medical interviews, we were asked, what would you do if you saw your boss looking at porn on a computer? And would you call the police? It's kind of these crazy questions to test us. But we used to trot out, a difficult colleague is a colleague in difficulty. But actually, if someone starts being a bit more stressed or a bit more rude or snippy, there's often something going on at home that you know nothing about. And instead of having a go at that person and getting into a fight or a rant, it's like, well, why are they acting like this? And I may not be the person they want to tell, but can I talk to HR? Do they actually need help? Do we need to help them through this behavior change rather than assuming they're just having a bad day and firing them? And when you've got a lot of stress on your own plate, you can't think like that about everyone you work with because you need to get something done. You have a very short patience threshold and it's slowing things down and giving us time to think and actually what may be going on. And that's where sharing. Do you come in on Monday and everyone, how was your week? How was that? It's a bit twee, but just that way of getting to know people and just breaking down those barriers. I don't know.
I also wanted to talk about the strong ones because I think a lot of people listening will know exactly what that means. The person who keeps functioning, who says, I'm fine when they're not. And in a way, the person everyone assumes is coping because they always have, as you mentioned in your scenario.
Yeah.
What is the cost of always being that person, in your opinion?
I was that person. I'd been a consultant surgeon for a year, and the sheer stress of telling 10 women a day they had breast cancer and dealing with that emotional pain. You don't know how much it takes out on you until you are the boss and then you are responsible for them. And that pressure was just eating away at me. And I started thinking about ways to get out of going to work. And I thought it was normal to think about ways to stop my car going to work on the way home. I hated it. But I couldn't let anybody know because stress is a weakness. Depression is a weakness. One of my patients found out that I wasn't right, so you put on a mask. And often when I was happiest at work was when I was at my lowest. And you're competent and people ask you, can you just do this because you're nice and you don't complain and you keep going until one day I woke up in the morning and had a very, very scary thought. And I went to work, I came home, I saw my GP and I was signed off sick with suicidal depression. That I'd been in denial myself. I didn't know it was happening, no one else did, but you cope and cope because you think it's normal to feel like that. And I think it happens if you've risen up in a company. If you're a junior person who does everything, the more you rise, you still get asked to do the things you did as a junior because people know you will and you're nice and you don't want to say no because you'll upset them. And it's really, really hard and it's a shock to everybody because nobody's expecting it. And when you go back, everyone's walking on eggshells and are you okay? And it actually happened to me again because I went straight back into I'm fine mode. And I think that's why we need to talk about the impact of work and pressures on life on people's mental health. It's a normal part of life. It is an illness. It is not your fault and it is happening. And to give people places to go, people to talk to if they're struggling, that are private, that will not be shared with anyone else in that team.
Sometimes I'm fine isn't honesty, right? It's just, in a way, the easiest way to avoid becoming another problem for someone else.
But I think so I say this a lot, how are you? Again, having had cancer. And it's like, I have chronic pain. I have all the side effects of all the drugs I'm on. I know it's a polite, how are you? Because I'm busy. I've got to move on. I'm just saying hi at the water filter. when I say, do you really want to know how I'm feeling, or is this just a quick check-in? You just want me to say I'm fine and then you can carry on. You're not the person I need to complain to. But when no one gives us the time, how are you really? Don't tell me you're fine. I've got half an hour. Sit down and tell me how you're doing. If you don't get that offer, you never share. We're all just fine, too busy, nobody cares.
Yeah, and how can someone then tell the difference between actually coping and just hiding it well? It's
I
hard,
don't
right?
think you can. I don't think you can. We hide what we want to from other people. And I
Yeah.
think whether you need to start with changing the workplace culture, we know these are busy, demanding jobs. There are people here you can talk to. We've got mental health support. We've got this. I think every person at work needs to know they've got one person they can go to confide in. It may not be at work. It may be someone online. It may be a friend. Some person you can go to say, look, I need to tell you something. Can you listen? And then ideally, a friend of mine, Christo Hudson, talks about this. You go and check in on people. I notice you've been a bit stressed or a bit busy lately. I've got half an hour. Do you fancy a chat? And giving them the opportunity just to talk. And I think it's just starting to be aware of what the pressures of life are like these days. But again, when you're busy and your nose is against the grindstone and you've got deadlines, who has the time?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that matters because a lot of suffering is quiet, especially corporate. And people don't always fall apart publicly. They keep
No.
working, they keep replying, smiling, and everyone assumes they're
Yeah.
fine because nothing looks dramatic, right? From the
No.
outside, at least.
It's the shame, it's the stigma, it's the fear of looking weak, the fear of not doing your job. What will people think? I might get sacked. All these pressures. Same with me as a surgeon. I can't break down. I have to keep going. I have to keep training. If they think I'm weak, I won't get to operate. Your job depends on you being this strong person. It's not acceptable to have a breakdown or to say you're struggling or to say you need time off. What will happen to my job? Maybe someone else will replace me. These pressures are real because that's how we've been taught the workplace runs. And I don't know what the answers are, but I know it's not healthy.
Yeah. And in your experience, what are the things high-performing people are most likely to keep silent about?
I think a lot of it is mental health. I think depression, anxiety still have a massive stigma in the world. I think it's often finances. I think when you have a high-powered job, people expect you to live a certain way and go to a certain holiday and have a certain car. And then you're chasing your tail because you need the job to pay the bills and you can't stop. And then I think that can be something. We're not very good at talking about money. I think relationships, it can be tough as you get older, your children start to leave. There's so many issues that can happen. Your work colleagues aren't your friends unless you're WhatsApping them on a Sunday night and you meet them socially. They're not friends. They don't really care. And when you work long hours, you may have lost touch with the friends that you do know. And there are so many things you hide at work. And maybe for you, work is the place you can cope. I've got a distraction. I can get through the day. I need work to get me through the day. And then when you're at home, your life may fall apart. You may have a child with an illness that no one else knows about because they don't need to know, but you know. And because everyone needs a best friend again, really, don't they? Who's got time to sit in with them. But we've lost that because we spend our lives on our phones looking at what random strangers are doing. And I think for me,
Exactly.
it's about protecting what's important to you, the things that you need, whether that's I need my cup of coffee in the morning to get me out the house in the right way, or I need an hour on the phone talking to somebody, and reconnecting with stuff that brings you joy. Music is a brilliant way of helping. We've all got songs that we just want to dance to in the car, or songs that make you cry. And having playlists to get you to work buzzed up or get you home. And I used to have a playlist of songs that I would listen to after a day of Breaking Bad News. And I wouldn't get out the car until I was ready to leave. Surgeon Liz in the car and wife Liz would go inside. And music can just make you feel it and just help.
That's so important because some people, I feel, don't burn out because they're weak, but they burn out because they were strong for too long without telling anyone what it was costing them to stay strong, right?
You can't be more resilient. You are resilient until it stops working. Burnout, you can't stop burnout happening because life throws curveballs at you all the while. But I think if you can find a way to keep your, I guess, energy banks topped up by telling people early about your problems before they fester, and by reconnecting with people and learning how to say no properly without upsetting people. That's something I do talk about. They don't hit as hard. And you know there's someone you can go to, and there are no things you can do to help you smile, even in those dark days.
And how do you make decisions when there is no clean answer and you're under the pressure?
It's really hard. They say you should never make decisions under a moment of stress. The number of bad haircuts I've had when I've split up with boyfriends, don't do it. Don't make a big life decision when everything's gone to plan. And I think it's that you've got time. You can do the Googling and the searching, but just take the time, the pros and cons, talk it through with somebody. Most of us don't. The decisions you make rashly under pressure are never good ones. Sometimes you just know you have to trust your gut. It depends what's on the line. I've had to make decisions about my cancer treatment, and what I do in the spur of the moment is very different to what I do a week later when I've had time to think and be rational. And I think it's just don't act out of anger or haste, because you'll do the wrong thing or you'll say the wrong thing. It's like you get an email at 5 o'clock on a Friday night that really pees you off. So you reply to it and you're really, really angry. And I learned to send it to myself, to read it again on Monday morning, to rewrite it, and then send it. It's things like that.
Yeah, even focusing on your breathing can help, right? Just
Yeah,
take a few
exactly.
deep breaths for 10 seconds.
The box breathing, the only decision you need to make instantly is if someone crashes on the floor having a heart attack or the building's on fire. Everything else can wait. And it's like that internal brown trousers, external calm. Think, what do I need to do? What are the first steps? Do I need to check this with anyone else? There's always time. There's always time to get other opinions and just do the right thing.
And this is where your world connects to decision load for me, but in a very human way.
And it's like I've had to do that on an operating table. You had a guy come in who's been shot in the abdomen and his liver's bleeding, and I have been doing CPR on the trolley whilst we're being wheeled into theatres. Or there's times when the blood vessel in someone's abdomen is burst, and you are literally going in, opening them up whilst people are scrubbing around you and just pressing. But the trick to bleeding is just to press and wait and let everyone else catch up. Because if I go in and start faffing and blood's pouring, they die. But that's that. I've had the training. Something clicks in as clockwork, and I know if someone's bleeding to death, you just press and you wait. And whilst you're waiting and everyone else catches up with the fluids, I've got time to think. Okay, if I take this off and A happens, I'll do B. If C happens, I'll do D. If E happens, I'll call a friend. And it's that buying yourself thinking time. Because I've been operating with juniors and they've cut the wrong thing and there's blood, you think, oh my goodness, panic. But you just press, calm everyone down, and start dealing with it little by little by little. And I've learned that
and
skill for years and years of training.
Applicable everywhere.
It is. It's like, don't panic. It's like, put the finger in the dam. Okay. Pull the computer out. Do whatever it is you need to do. Put the finger in the dam and then just think, right, okay. What are the possibilities here? What can I do? And I think it's that logic problem way of thinking that can really help. Don't assume X is going to happen. It could be this or this or this. And I think that helps give you options and just see the bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, the big problem is that most people want certainty before they decide, but certainty isn't just available all the time, right?
No.
Every option has fear in it. Every option has a cost in a way.
Every 100% guarantee could still go wrong. And I have to live with that as a cancer patient. My cancer could come back a fourth time. It could be incurable. I might not be here next year. And there are days when you feel very low and you don't want to get out of bed and you think, what's the point in living? And then you think, well, okay, I'm here today. I'll carry on until I know things are going to change. And that took 5 years for me to stop thinking, is this the day I die? 5 years to get over that, because it's huge. And it's exhausting living with that kind of fear and knowledge. Is this the day I lose my job? Is this the month I can't afford to pay the rent? Whatever people's pressures are. And time helps, and talking to people helps, and realizing you're not alone. There are other people going through it. And I found people online, forums, support groups, going through the same things so we could talk and share our experiences. And I think that helps, because if no one else knows you're struggling, it's really, really lonely.
What helped me to cope with my anxiety that I carried since I was a kid in a way is I just put it into perspective in a way. You can get a heart attack or a stroke, right? Every second. And it happens more and more with young people nowadays, right? Even professional football players collapse on a pitch and
Yeah.
it's a second and they're gone. So it's a probability that it could happen to each of us every second now during the podcast as well. So should I live in a fear because I can't control if I'll get a heart attack?
Yeah. And I think it comes down to risk. And I do a lot of this in my Cancer Explainer videos. You may hear that drinking matcha tea, no, that's a bad example. You might hear that this thing doubles your risk of getting cancer. And a lot of people listening will think, if I do that, I have a 50-50 chance of getting cancer because they've heard the word double. But if your risk of getting cancer, Marko, is 1 in 1,000, doubling it is 2 in 1,000, which is still tiny. And it's that risk. What is the chance of someone of your age having a heart attack? It may be 1 in 10,000 in your 50s. Okay. Compare that to getting cancer in your lifetime. That's 1 in 2. But it's like people are scared of flying, but actually being in a plane is safer than being in a car. But because we think that's more scary, and it's that risk and trying to help people stop and just say, okay, what are the odds this might happen? And what are the odds this might happen? What do I need to worry about? And if I can't control it, I should stop worrying about it. You can do things to prevent you getting a heart attack, like exercising and eating a healthy diet and not smoking. Everything else is out of your control. And I am slowly learning to stop worrying about things I can't control because it's a waste of time and energy.
What we spoke about, decision making, when the pressure builds up, the hard thing isn't just in a way the decision, it's making the decision while you're scared. That's and unsure.
Exactly. And I think in that case, you ask someone above you for help. The boss is above you because they've been through this. And sometimes you need to get to the very top for them to say, what do we do? A or B? And they'll make a decision based on all their years of experience. And it might be the wrong one, but that's what they do. But you have to ask for help by the time and don't wait. I used to, as a junior doctor doing an operation in the middle of the night, your boss knows you're doing it, but he's at home in bed. And you don't quite know what to do. And it's getting a bit sticky and you wait. Should I ring the boss? No, I'll wait another half an hour. Should I ring the boss? Another half an hour. It's now 2:00 in the morning instead of 11 o'clock at night. You really don't want to ring them at 2:00, but you have to. And often by the time you've called them and they've come in, you've sorted it out because you know help is on the way. Ask for help early. Don't wait because it just makes it worse. And often asking for help, you can think because you know help is coming and actually you can solve the problem yourself. Don't wait to call for help. It's not a sign of weakness and it may save the business. It may save someone's life.
And what do people get wrong about resilience? Because I'll be honest, a lot of resilience talk makes me want to switch off. It can sound very clean and motivational from the outside, right?
Yeah.
But when someone is genuinely scared or exhausted, stay positive can almost feel insulting, right? So what does real resilience look like? The non-cheesy version.
I don't think you can be more or less resilient. I think we are resilient and we cope with what life throws at us. If you were diagnosed with cancer or, my mother's died, my dad's died, you get through that because you have to. When people say, how have you got through cancer 3 times? I don't really know. I just didn't really have a choice. You get through it. I may get through it badly. I may get through it differently compared to someone else. I may be singing and dancing. I may be crying, but that is my resilience. I don't think you can describe it. You can't tell someone to be more resilient because you don't know what their situation and their background is. I don't think you can put a number on it, but what you can do is build up your energy. You have things in your life that fulfill you, that make you happy, people you can talk to, and that will make it easier for you to cope when the curveballs happen. Not more resilient, because that resilience is in there, but it means you come at it from a higher level. You've got more energy. It doesn't affect you quite as much as if you've let everything go and then there's nowhere else to go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what should, in your opinion, people stop saying when someone is going through something hard?
I think we have this inner need to connect and to share experiences. So, my mum died. Oh, my mum died as well, let me tell you. Or my friend had cancer and she's dead. We want to share, to bond. We think we're making a connection. You didn't give a toss about any of that. And I think Rather than trying to help somebody, just be there to listen. And I used to be terrible because I'm imagining what I will say to you when you're talking to me. I'm not listening to what you're saying, and just sit on your hands and listen and take a couple of seconds to think and take it all in before you reply, and give someone that space. And I think that is the best thing you can do, because often when someone is telling me, I've got this problem and this problem, doctor, it's often they're about to leave. And then they say, by the way, I've actually had this really worrying pain and I now feel brave enough to tell you about it. And often it's a thing at the end. When someone's angry, I've had really angry patients and they go, "Right," and you're scared to go in, but actually they deflate. And then the last thing they say is, actually, this is what's going on. So just be there to listen and don't try and help them. Just give them the space, and often they'll work it out themselves. I think that's the thing. You don't know what they're going through. You just need to give them space to let it out.
And if someone listening right now is under a lot of pressure and they keep telling everyone, I'm fine, but deep down they know they're not fine, what would you want them to hear? Not as a doctor giving them a perfect answer, just as Liz, right?
I'm sorry if that's you. I've been there and I know what it's like. And I think you know you need to talk to someone, but you might not know who that is. If there is a friend, someone you can think of, just reach out and say, I need to talk. Have you got time to listen? And if you can't think of anyone, there are, in the UK, we have people like the Samaritans. There are charities that you can call 24/7 just to say, I'm struggling. And they are trained advisors who will sit and listen to you as you talk. And I think that's a really great first step if you are in danger, if you're really scared. You can often go to your doctor and just say, I'm really struggling. I've got all this on my plate, because they're confidential. They cannot tell your family what's going on. They will often know support services, therapy. I still have therapy from cancer for 10 years to help you cope, to find that way of talking to someone. And often it's talking to someone who's not in your immediate circle. So you're not worried about how they feel. It's not going to go back to that circle. It's that anonymous support where you can just start sharing and offloading, and things will feel a little bit lighter.
I think that's the perfect place to close. For me, this conversation wasn't just about illness. It was about what happens when control disappears, right? When fear gets heavy, and when the person who is usually strong finally needs help. The line I keep coming back to is, people don't just need information when they're scared. They need someone calm enough and kind enough to sit with them in uncertainty, right? In the uncertainty.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This was honest, useful, and very human. I think a lot of people listening will feel, in a way, less alone because of this. So thank you for
Marko.
sharing.
Thank you. It's been a great chat.